folks, so the time has come for our last thing for today, which is the panel with the Angular core team and the one and only Tracy Lee from this.lab. So please, everyone, welcome Tracy Lee, Emma Twersky, Mark Thompson, and Jessica Janiuk. Hey, folks, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Hello.
Yeah, glad to be here.
This is very exciting, like to get like this kind of star lineup for our last segment of the day. So, folks, please spam our chat with the questions. They are here to give you some answers. So, Tracy, basically, you are going to manage this section. So please have the stage. See you later.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, everyone, thank you so much for joining. So excited that Jessica, Mark, and Emma could join for this panel. So thank you all for joining. And Angular Day has been awesome so far. And like Tomas said, feel free to post your questions in chat. I am monitoring chat. So feel free to ask whatever questions you have, and we will go ahead and answer them. But maybe quickly we can just do quick introductions. Do you guys just want to go round table and maybe give quick introductions and maybe like what you guys all focus on the Angular team? Jessica,
Sounds
you can
good.
go first if you want.
Yeah, I'll go first. All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Jessica. I have been on the Angular team for about a year, a little over a year. I work on the core framework team. Much of my work has been internal to Google and not necessarily visible to the outside world, but fairly crucial and related to Ivy, which we recently finished a big migration of. And yeah, so that's what my work has been on this team.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then Emma, what about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I work with Jessica and Mark on the Angular team. I work in developer relations along with Mark, which means that I get to work on the external side of dealing with all of the developers that use Angular and getting to collect feedback from you all and take it to the team and take all the cool things the team is doing and bring it to you all. And I specifically mostly focus on like UI pretty stuff. So like Angular material, that kind of jazz.
Awesome. Thank you. And Mark?
Hey friends, my name is Mark Thompson. Yeah, and I am a DevRel engineer over at Google. I work right next to Emma most days when we're in the office, which is really, really cool. And what I work on right now, I'm really interested in the Angular learning journey. So my work has been focused around what can we do to make Angular more approachable to new learners and just continue to grow the entire community.
That's awesome. And y'all are all fabulous folks. So thank you again for joining us. Definitely had a few questions here. But again, for those of you who are listening, feel free to post them in chat and we can go ahead and answer those questions. I would love to maybe first talk to Jessica and also Mark and Emma, if you guys want to jump in, just about like Ivy migration, like what does 2021 look like? Where are you all at now? And like what's planned for the future and maybe like the first half of 2022?
Not a small question to start, right?
Sorry.
So we spent a big chunk of time and energy over the last year working on making sure Ivy would fully land and that we could finally remove View Engine, and we got there, which is very exciting. It was a lot of effort. Most of the team was involved with it, my head was buried in Ivy for that entire time, doing mostly that. A lot of debugging you have to do with an Ivy migration. We are just about getting ready now to fully remove View Engine from the repo entirely. There's actually a pull request that's already out there that we've been kind of slowly working through to get all of that code out of there. So very shortly, that'll be completely gone. We're working on cleaning up things like factories and summaries that come along with, or that were along with View Engine that are no longer necessary with Ivy. So this comes with a bunch of size reductions and complexity reductions that you no longer have to worry about. So that's what we've been working on. There's a whole lot in front of us that now that Ivy is behind us, we can now kind of focus our energies on. And some of it I can talk about, some of it I can't. But there's some router work, there's some work related to reactivity. We're doing some really great stuff around typed forms right now, which I know has been long awaited and desired. And we're looking at one of the biggest things that's coming that I know a lot of people are curious about is essentially standalone components where you wouldn't necessarily need to have a module anymore. And this is a huge, huge change, paradigm shift that people are talking about. I'm very excited. There's an RFC, or I think it was an RFC that we put out there that people can take a look at, comment on the design, and give us feedback because we want to know how you feel about this approach. Yeah, so those are just a small selection of the things that are coming. I'm sure Mark and Emma have a few more things to add.
Sure. I'll just say if you're interested in what's coming next in 2022, yeah, definitely check out our roadmap. We are really diligent about keeping it updated. So just go to angular.io/roadmap and you can get to see what we're working on next. Jessica did an excellent job outlining all the great things. And I love how humble Jessica is about like how much great work she's done for the Ivy migration, but she's kind of a rock star, and I'm just really grateful to be able to work on a team with her.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jessica's underselling herself. I gave a talk in Angular Seattle. I think, Tracy, you were there, where the engineer, one of the other speakers was a Google Cloud engineer who said essentially Jessica's migration work saved like a team worth of engineers hours or something like that. So like there's an entire team free at Google to just like work on different stuff now because of the Ivy migration finally happening. But yeah, in terms of like things coming up, Ivy obviously enables a lot of things. If you're interested in RFCs, we have that optional module. RFC is still open on the GitHub repo, so github.com/Angular, and in the discussion tab there. And there's a couple more coming soon. So super excited about some of those things that were also mentioned. So.
That is so exciting. It really is awesome to see just like every year, Angular moving forward in so many amazing ways. We do have a question in the chat from Emmanuel. Sorry if I butchered your name, but do you plan to use module federation as a native feature? Will you change to change Webpack to Snowpack?
I think we're looking at module federation and what the options are right now. But as you folks probably know, and Manuela, as you probably know right now, that Manfred Steyer has like a lot of great content about what you can use right now in Angular to get like micro front ends and module federation. So I would totally check out a lot of Manfred stuff around that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a planned solution to like change the way Angular currently handles those things as much as enable it by adding tools. So like we like Webpack 5, but we want to make sure that there's like a clear solution for doing that. And Manfred is a big part of that story of figuring out what that looks like at Angular with Angular.
God, I love Manfred.
Yeah.
I can also add that we are talking about, we are aware of the trend and the interest, and it is something we're thinking about as we do our upcoming improvements. So we hear you, we're aware of it.
And Jessica, when you were speaking about Ivy and giving us updates and stuff like that, you did talk about standalone components and how everyone's really excited about it. And Thomas wanted to know what's the current status with the obviously very popular and interesting standalone component RFC. Any comments there?
I'm actually not sure exactly where we are in the process with it. I know we essentially have like a prototype, but there's a lot of work that needs to go into it yet. So once we finalize that, then we can actually start official work on it, and we'll probably see something later next year. But I can't really say exactly what our timeline would be on it. Just that we're very excited about it. It's a top priority for us. So hopefully that answers your question. Specifically, non-specifically enough.
So giving everyone a chance, because I actually wonder, I should have done this like separately, right? Everyone cover your ears for, like your responses. But one great question here is, what feature from Angular 13 is the most impactful thing for the devs overall? Like, is everyone in alignment here, you think? Pick your answer, stick to your answer. Don't let the next, responses sway.
Do I get to go first?
Yes, go ahead.
I personally am thrilled that IE support is gone, because it's we had to maintain a lot of complexity just to keep support for that, and it allows us to really simplify things, and it makes our CI a bit more stable too. So we're excited that that's no longer there. Sorry to those who need to support IE 11, but you still got V12. So
I was gonna say there's always V12.
There's always LTS. Yeah, I know, Jessica, going first is smart because you took some of the big ones. I will say something that I think is small, but if we're talking about like developer impacting, if you write code in a code editor, specifically VS Code, and you are using the Angular language service, which now is built on top of Ivy, there's some really cool, like small things in there that just completely make like writing a line of code a lot quicker. So I think there's like a video on our Twitter that summarizes it really well, but like with optional chaining, right? Like clicking tab, it like automatically optional chains for you. So that's like what, I don't know, 4 less things that I have to type every time, and like 1 less error that I will always write. So if we're talking like day-to-day, like tiny little things that like bother me, that like I am not good at using a keyboard sometimes, and the question mark is like, I don't even know where it is looking down at my keyboard. So we're talking like small developer impact. Obviously Ivy, right? Like Ivy is the big one. IE11, like I hate it, but like tiny things like the language service, I'm like equally excited about. Go for it.
I love Edna's answer. That was really funny. She's like, I11, I just hate it. That's really funny. So I want to tell you an answer that you need to hear, but it may not make you as happy. Removing View Engine plus IE11, like moving Angular forward, that is so impactful because what's going to be enabled because of it, what that opens the doors because of, like that is the true magic. Now, your day-to-day may not change immediately from your perception, but that's okay, because when things start to happen and when new features start rolling out and when you stop asking about Ivy and the community stops talking about Ivy altogether, like that's what I'm most excited about. And that's what I think is going to be a really big impact, because what rendering engine we're using shouldn't really be a part of our conversation anymore. It's Ivy, and we should just be talking about all the great things that Angular has. So removing View Engine means that we get to stop talking about Ivy and we just get to start using Ivy and enjoying. So listen, I could go on and on. You could tell how hyped up I'm getting because I know what's coming and I know what's available now that Ivy is just it. All Ivy, all the time. Ivy 2022. That's who you are.
Preach. Yeah, I can't help but get excited, Mark, whenever you talk. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in. Whatever you're selling, I'm drinking it. Yes. So, another question we had in the chat is, what will be the impact of the Angular Material migration to Material web components from a developer perspective? Or any other comments about Angular Material generally, if you have them.
Yeah. Can you repeat? So is this talking about, because web components is a different thing, right? If we're talking about like just using web components, there's a separate implementation of Angular material there. If we're talking about Angular material, there's a few migrations coming up that I'm excited about. Number one, we will be migrating to MDC-based components. That has been on the roadmap since all of us joined the team, and those components have existed since we joined the team, right? And that's the idea that like currently, if you're using Angular material, surprise, surprise, the specs behind that are from 2016, which like I was still in college. So like they're old and they're outdated. And there's so many cool things that have happened to material since then that we want to make sure you're using. I know. Okay. Maybe I'm dating myself. I don't know. I'm just saying they're old. So the MDC migration is super exciting because those components have been out. Google uses them quite heavily. And so moving them to be the default components brings along a lot of like visual changes that will make apps automatically just like look nicer because it brings along material. And that frees up the team to talk about the next thing, which if you follow material, you know that they just released something called Material 3, which is we're on Material 1, so like 2, 3 iterations later. And the idea of Material 3 is personalization and customization. And what that means for the web, hopefully, although the specs aren't quite there, is a lot more personalization of apps, both for developers and the end user. And so a lot of that is using things like, again, we got rid of IE11, so we can use things like CSS custom properties to really open up those API surfaces and use like modern CSS to allow developers to essentially like customize anything within those components without doing like really weird CSS overrides. So I'm excited because essentially all of those migrations mean like newer specs with MDC and newer like personalization and more customization with CSS properties. All of that's like 2022, 2023 vision. So there are not dates on a lot of this stuff, but the MDC migration is coming up, and that is definitely something to be excited about. Does that answer it?
Cool. Thank you. Yes, that was great. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, the Angular learning journeys, because I know, learning Angular is definitely like a very passionate thing that the team is passionate about generally. So like, what are some new ways of learning Angular? Like any improvements, like things y'all have done, 2021 and what's coming up 2022. I personally am excited. I heard you guys just hit 100,000 YouTube subscribers. And like, what is it, like 500,000 Twitter followers? Is that right? Something like that? 400,000? Road to 1 million. So yeah, like I would love to hear a little bit just more about like Angular learning in general.
Yeah, I'd love to take this question because this is a part that I'm really passionate about. And let me explain a little bit why that is. So before joining Google, I spent some time teaching at different universities in the US. And so education in general is really interesting to me. And so that's why I love thinking and talking about this problem, because I know that for some people, Angular is seen as this really complex set of systems and you don't know what you have to learn. And what I think is true, and I think what the team also thinks is true, is that you can get really, really far before you hit some of the more advanced topics. But when people approach Angular, they think that, well, they're always thinking from the purview of someone who's been doing Angular for 5 years or 8 years or more. They're like, well, if you're going to learn Angular, you have to start with, let's say, dependency injection or advanced dependency injection and providers. And I'm like, well, what about just getting your app created? What about that part of the story? What about learning how the tooling can remove some of those cognitive blocks where if you want to start with routing, for example, in your application, if you just do ng new, your app name, and then dash routing, you're actually not having to go into the modules yet and import anything and make any changes, right? So I think there's just a lot of stuff that can get done right out of the box with Angular. And I want to bring more focus to that for the new learners, mind you. I'm not saying to simplify Angular or remove some of the advanced features for people who have a different need, but let's think about the new learners, right? So here's what's happened so far. In V13, we actually, the team, shout out to Dave Shevitz and the rest of our amazing technical writers and other team members, we've released some new guides. right, to help make learning parts of Angular easier. So when you think about internationalization, we have new guides and reformatted that content to make learning how to use our localized and internationalization more accessible to people, more open to people. Then here's what's coming in 2022. We're working on some brand new learning content to get people started from the beginning. New videos. I can't say too much because I want it to be a surprise, but you better believe that we're working hard and we're thinking really intently about how to serve those new learners who are developers but don't know Angular yet. How do we serve them the best and make sure that their onboarding into Angular is really smooth? Because again, I think there's just a lot that you can do before you hit the more advanced topics. And then once we get that part of the learning journey under control and just get people there, we're going to start looking at, okay, what about medium Angular, right? So when you get to more advanced, then what about expert Angular, like the people who need other features that maybe aren't well documented or don't have a lot of examples. So it's going to be a 3-part solution, but we're going to get there, and 2022 is just the beginning.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. Every time I hear you talk, I'm like, man, should we do a podcast about this? You have so much to say.
I talk a lot, so please, just like this, my wife does. Whenever I'm talking too much, she just puts a little pinky finger up just to let me know, like, Mark, you're going on too long.
That's
and then,
cute.
So if I'm ever talking too much, just go ahead and,
Oh my God, I love that. I'm going to. So funny. No, it's perfect. It's awesome. Okay, cool. Any updates on DevTools?
Yeah. DevTools just released a new version yesterday, actually, or 2 days ago, 1.0.4, which if you don't know what DevTools is, Angular DevTools is a Chrome extension that we released earlier this year as part of Google I/O, and it's a way to debug your Angular applications. And there's 2 major parts of it. There's the component panel, which is how you can see sort of the layout of your Angular application. A lot of that looks super similar to its predecessors of other debugging tools with Angular, but it's super cool because you can like edit your components in the browser, right? Like I think we all use a lot of dev tools to make sure we're debugging our app without switching context of a text editor with like tiny things like that. And then the other tab is the profiler tab, where you can record a set of interactions and look at the change detection cycles run and look at what lifecycle hooks are being called, check for best practices and things like that. And there was just a new release, if you update your extension to sort of run those change detection cycles and detect that profiling significantly better. I know Minko, Mark and I's boss, is very excited about that PR that went in and went out with that release that improves the profiling, just in terms of like what it's catching and things like that. In terms of other features and stuff, right, because that's like behind the scenes, we're like doing a better job at catching what you're doing without like telling you anything. In terms of like features, I don't think that there's anything planned right now for DevTools. You can always open an issue. There's like a link within DevTools. But right now, the feedback we've got is like, we're covering the use cases that we wanted to. And we're just trying to make sure we're bringing you the best information possible. So highly recommend going and checking that out. If you want a video on what that looks like, I think it's Angular.io or Angular.io/DevTools will get you there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so people are like desperate for y'all to answer this question. Do you have any update about strongly typed reactive forms?
Yeah, Mark can melt away. So I'm super excited internally, and I think we can say this. I just formalized I have a draft open of a plan for like officially how we should do feedback from the Angular team to external. And typed forms is the project we are using to see how this works. And the idea there is like, we want to make sure as a team that first we do our own design reviews and we try and break what we're about to do. And then we bring it to the community and our Google developer experts like Tracy and other community members and see if you can break our proposal, right? And the idea of RFCs, we keep sending them out. We do like one a month. This will be another RFC, is like we want you to break it. If like it hasn't happened yet, but the most successful version of an RFC is where somebody finds a significant flaw so that we stop implementing something before it's too late, right? So maybe this will be the one, but essentially the status is that is currently about to go to internal design review, and then you will start to see in December, so next month, or possibly January, public RFCs of proposals. There's already draft PRs. If you're like super sneaky, there's a lot of like sneaky people in the community that find PRs before I find them, which like it's my job, so I don't know how y'all are doing it. Except they're being pushed at like 2 a.m. So I know how people are beating me to it. But yeah, you will see RFCs in the next couple months on that topic. If you are super interested, please reach out to devrel@angular.io. Part of that feedback process is that I would love to include community members who are super dedicated and interested in that topic earlier in the feedback sessions so we can be aware of other use cases. So again, reach out to us at that email if you are a community member who is specifically interested in giving feedback there.
I love that. Thank
Yeah.
you. We're running low on time. So there is another question that people are excited about, which is with the advent of standalone components, there is no risk of giving too much freedom on how to create a component compared to what a framework should compared to what a framework should have to give. Wait, hold on. Now that I read that out loud, I'm confused. Maybe the question is will standalone components give you too much freedom?
I think maybe
that-
I was gonna say
Go ahead,
maybe it's like now there's gonna be two ways, right? Do you make a standalone component or do you make a not standalone a together component? I don't know what's called.
Module.
Jessica, do you have an answer for that?
I think so. And it's like modules will still work. You can still use them if you want to logically group a whole bundle of things together. I think ideally what we'll see is that modules will be used more for libraries and things that are being distributed for your consumption rather than in your own applications. So, but both options will be there. And if you find that modules provide you value, go ahead and use them. You don't have to, but you can.
That's a great answer. Tracy, you're on mute, by the way.
Sorry. Thank you. So this is another question. It's a little bit long, and this is this is for, I guess, learning Angular. Let me read through the whole thing. So I find myself a bit performance scared for components, but also find myself probably not thinking about components enough. I hear the experience, but another dimension could be the complexity of the app. Our app is increasing in complexity and options, and we're thinking about modules, libraries, etc. Speakers of today, micro front ends. Can this be something that is for big structured apps? What? I don't know. That was a hard one. Sorry, y'all. Maybe I shouldn't have asked that. I should have read it out loud in my head. Sorry. Did that make any sense to you all?
I think the question is, as apps grow, is like when's the right time to introduce micro front ends?
Mm-hmm. And I know the Angular team is pretty passionate about micro front ends right now, right? Mm-hmm.
We're definitely thinking about it. I wouldn't say that like maybe passion is the right word. We're excited about the direction that people are going with it. But that's a tough question since as far as the way Angular is right now, like you have to use third-party libraries to do the micro front end approach. And I guess it's going to be really up to your project to really figure out what the best way to kind of break up your application is, because every application is different. I guess that's probably the best answer I can give without knowing more about the applications in general.
So like no plans for like education on micro front ends, let's say, as part of like Angular learning or anything.
I won't say no plans there, because I think that there are going to be some opportunities for us to create content that support things like this, right? But I don't know what the full picture looks like right now.
So yeah, if you like it though, what do you I feel like every time I talk to you guys, you say if you're passionate about something, open up an issue and make everybody like it, right?
Yep.
So
Yep, please.
does Angular track bots? Like, or how many GitHub accounts can I make? Can I make an impact? Just kidding. But okay, yeah. So like, if you are passionate about those things, again, I think that Angular team has been really good about being able to do that. Just being open about, hey, we get those thumbs up on GitHub, and then we'll address it. So. Well, this is the end of our time. Thank you all three so much for joining us. We really appreciate y'all. For those of you who are here, you can obviously see everybody's Twitter handles on here as well. So definitely follow these folks on Twitter, follow the Angular handle. Let's get them to a million followers. But even more importantly, like, everybody is so like amazing generally about communicating and things like that. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, folks, like for these very cool insights straight from the source. So like we are very excited for all this upcoming stuff, which should now be unlocked, as you said, like with the drop of the IE11 and the drop of the Vue engine. So we just can't wait for all these goodies to start rolling out. So thanks again for your time. Thanks all for your sharing, and hopefully see you at the next edition of the Angularday in the future. Ciao, ciao.